You're listening to Super Power Up with multidimensional master, superpower expert, and former counterintelligence agent, Tonya Rekla. If you're ready to disrupt reality, then sit down, strap in, and prepare to experience the show that proves there is no spoon.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Rekla, your superpower expert, and today we're talking about shifting the parenting paradigm. Last week, I spoke with Amber Trueblood about stretching motherhood, and her book, Stretch Marks, all about mothering in your own way and kind of having the courage to step into that space with you and your partner and your children in how you're going to do mothering, right? What that means for you, what that looks like for your family. And I wanted to expand on that conversation today and talk about the parenting paradigm and what we see in the transformational evolutionary conversations as it relates to parenting. Now, by far, the clients that struggle the most in these transformational journeys, at least through the programs that we take people through, are those who have young children at home and are trying to manage this mentorship, this parenting on top of really truly managing their own kind of inner children, right? The pieces of them that maybe got traumatized or buried or kind of shoved down or ignored or whatever the case may be. It can be the most minor kind of thing that occurs when we're young. And if we don't have the capacity to deal with it, or we don't think to ask somebody to assist us with it, it becomes a constriction that later has to get evolved and integrated in this journey as we continue to lose density and to raise our frequencies and want to hold that relationship with the divine in bigger and bigger ways. So the parenting conversation really cannot be overlooked in all of this. And what does it mean to evolve that? What does it mean to even talk about parenting as a paradigm or different paradigms? And does that mean that there are different ways of parenting? And does that mean that as we evolve that we get to kind of pick and choose from what's worked in the past and look at perhaps what hasn't worked in the past or what we could improve upon? And what does that look like when we start talking about really acknowledging ourselves as aspects of the divine? Does that mean that our children are as well? And are they whole aspects? Are they minor aspects? Are they evolving aspects? Are they lesser than aspects? Who gets to kind of define what that is? Because we can't continue to parent in the same way that we parented when we were more focused perhaps on roles and obligations and identities of the lower frequencies, and think that if we raise that, if we expand that out, if we start asking, well, who are we in relation to the divine, we also have to then ask, well, who are our children? And what does that mean about this relationship that we hold with them? So that's today's conversation, all about shifting the parenting paradigm. And we're going to take a quick break. But just so you know, if you are challenged in this area where you're walking your transformational journey, you're pursuing your evolution, maybe you and your spouse or your partner are, and you have children at home, and it's like, you hear your parents' words coming out of your mouth, and perhaps that wasn't the kind of parenting that you want to experience as a parent and give to your children. So those are topics that we tackle a lot in the Superpower programs. Go check out that curriculum. We have packages and programs for couples as well, because we think it's important that if you're walking beside your partner, that the two of you continue and intentionally grow together. So go to superpowerexperts.com, click on the Superpower Programs tab and take a look there. But when we come back from break, we're going to talk some about the parenting paradigm, kind of old and new, and what you can look forward to as you continue on this transformational journey. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, Remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world. Awesome. We're back. You're listening to Disrupt Reality today on Superpower Up Network. We're talking about shifting the parenting paradigm. This piggybacks off of my conversation last week with Amber Trueblood about stretching motherhood and really the courage to be fully who you are in your mothering styles. You can check out her book, Stretch Marks. This conversation is more about the frequency, dimensionality, paradigm shifting that has to occur with regard to how we look at parenting. So when Neva was young, I remember kind of hearing myself parent in certain ways that reminded me of what we were unpacking with clients going through our programs. And I remember looking at Justin and saying, why in the world would we program her with something that 20, 30, 40 years from now, she's going to pay somebody money to help her unpack it, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And they weren't bad things. It was mostly along the lines of, who are you in this world, right? We really, truly, I mentioned it before the break, we can't think that we're going to be able to have these conversations about us as aspects of the divine and walking the world, knowing our spiritual selves, and think it doesn't have an impact on how we see children and what we think children are capable of. If you don't believe me, just go listen to Neva's show, superpowerkids.com. It's amazing what comes out of her mouth, and that's real. That's none of that's scripted. She has, she prepares for her shows, but the conversation is very real. You can hear it when she's on other people's shows, when she's being interviewed, and she doesn't prep for those. She shows up in her wholeness. And I was listening to someone was interviewing her recently, and they asked, about what her parents had done for her or something. I don't know. I didn't hear that portion of the conversation, but her response indicated that it was, how do your parents parent you and this and that. And it was beautiful how she really spoke to the relationship that we've pursued together, where we are obviously still the parents. And if she steps out of line, she's aware of it, and she gets disciplined if that's necessary. But for the most part, we arm her with the tools to be able to figure that stuff out on her own, to see consequence, to watch cause and effect. From an early age, I remember telling her, what is it that you want? And is this behavior that you're exhibiting getting you closer to what you want? It's kind of absurd to think of parenting in a way that is encouraging your children to get what they want. But ultimately, isn't that what all of us want, right? We want to be able to say, I prefer this, and I want to live my life in this way. I want to serve in this capacity. I want to be of service. I want to be free. I don't want to live under my own kind of fearful oppression. I want to be able to break out of that. Well, our children are phenomenal examples of what that can look like in a fairly pure state. So Neva's able to integrate and move through stuff much, much more rapidly than somebody who has 20, 30, 40 years of their own programming and packaging that they have to disentangle. And so it stands to reason that we can look to children in proper circumstances. I mean, really, really do not misunderstand me here. It is extremely clear in our home who the parents are and who the child is. And we get to define what that looks like, right? And so we, as Justin and I are actively in pursuit of oneness together, we've chosen to include Neva in that. We play around with different ways to kind of have more equality in the home so that she gets to have a say in certain things and she gets to be a leader. But it's because she's demonstrated an ability and a desire to model leadership qualities, right? So that means that if you're going to throw a temper tantrum and give into your lower frequency aspects and not acknowledge when you kind of fall into a fear storm, then there is lesser capacity for leadership in those moments. If you can manage yourself and utilize the processes that we've trained her on and that she trains others on, and walk herself through or request assistance in walking through. Obviously the dog had something to say about this one. Asking for assistance in walking through those processes, then she gets to have responsibilities because she demonstrates the ability to hold that responsibility. So it's not a simple conversation about what kind of rights should the child have and do they get to have a say in things and da 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 da. It's more about who are they being, who are they capable of being, and what responsibilities and freedoms come with that ability. Makes sense? It's no different than in a job. You earn certain responsibilities and freedoms as you move up in rank, if you will, coming out of the military. It's no different than the adult journey. It's just, they are adults in training, if you will. That's what Justin calls them, AITs. They're adults in training. And we really sat with it, and we talk often in our family about, we have a short period of time here to instill in her, her own self-worth, her own abilities, her own perspectives on things, how to resource the divine within herself, how to listen to her intuition, how to walk in faith. We have a limited time frame to where she's looking to us for that assistance. And when we can utilize that time to do what, Justin and I feel very clearly the divine is calling us to do, then we get to contribute to her existence in a way that benefits her as well as the rest of the world, because she touches people's lives in that capacity. So it is a different way of looking at parenting, and there are aspects that you have to work out, and there are things you have to unprogram yourself from. There's a ton of growth on all sides of the equation. You have to be willing to be transparent with your child. Say, oh, what, that came from fear. That's my ego talking right there. So, maybe we can talk about what's happening right there. When they have the capacity to comprehend that. Neva really loves to tell people, she especially in her keynotes, that she's been trained for the last 10 years of her life. And so you can't expect your children to magically be able to manage themselves if they haven't been given the tools to manage themselves. And it is a full-on commitment. So that's just a taste of kind of how we look at parenting a little bit differently in our home, and why we think it's important to continually be challenging assumptions and including the child in certain aspects, and managing them in a mentorship capacity versus perhaps perpetuating paradigms and programs that really don't serve any of us anymore. So something to think about today. Again, if you're interested in talking about these things and helping you and your family grow and transform, be sure to go check out the Superpower Programs tab at superpowerexperts.com. But until next time, go out, uncover your superpowers, and change the world, everyone. Take care.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.